So we are studying the Havamal this week. Um, I'm going to pop open. Hopefully, what we can see here is the actual, like, what do you guys see on your screen right now? Should just be like a title image for the Havamal.
I see the title screen.
Perfect.
Sorry,
Okay,
stepped away
so
to grab my Havamal.
what's that?
I said sorry. I stepped away to grab my Havamal.
Oh, sweet. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so the title image is what we need displayed right now. So what I've got going on in the background while we're talking is I've got voluspa.org pulled up. That is public access. That's technically what we're going to be reading from today, just to make it accessible for everyone. Of course, I always throw in a shameless plug for Jackson Crawford's Poetic Edda. It's written in very easy to understand English, and I prefer that if I'm trying to study something. So here we go. The Havamal itself is broken down into multiple parts. We're probably going to be able to tackle just the one part today. So I'm just going to read from Bellows Notes, who did this translation on the poem of Havamal. So we have 5 separate elements that are clearly recognizable. The Havamal proper, which is stanzas 1 through 80, a collection of proverbs and counsels for the conduct of life, which is, I mean, that's what we'll be digging into today. The Lod Fafnismal, which is stanzas 111, 111 to 138, a collection somewhat similar to the first, kind of codes to life. And it's addressed specifically to Lodfafnir. The third is the Leothata. That stands as 147 through 165. It's a collection of charms and magic. Number 4 is the love story of Odin and Billing's daughter. That stands as 96 through 102. With an introductory dissertation on the fickleness of women in general. Okay, so we're also going to be covering some archaic principles that don't really fit that well in the 21st century. So yeah, we've got a lot to cover, a little bit of time to cover it in. So let's take on the Havamal proper, stanzas 1 through 80. So stanza 1 begins, within the gates ere a man shall go, full warily let him watch, full long let him look about him, for little he knows where a foe may lurk and sit in the seats within. Hail to the giver, a guest has come, where shall the stranger sit? Swift shall he be, who with sword shall try the proof of his might to make. Fire he needs, who with frozen knees has come from the cold without. Food and clothes must the farer have, the man from the mountains come. Water and towels and welcoming speech should he find who comes to the feast. If renown he would get and again be greeted, wisely and well must he act. Wits must he have who wanders wide, but all is easy at home. At the witless man the wise shall wink when among such men he sits. So right off the bat we have a wisdom for guests and travelers. So Odin is attested to. It's basically the Havamal is the council of Odin, the one-eyed, or the sayings of Hor, which is another name for Odin. Right off the bat, we've got wisdom for guests and wanderers. Knowing that Odin is one of the biggest attributes of Odin is his wanderings, right? It only makes proper sense that that's the code that we start with. The code of living, the code to life is, basically if you're going to be the very first thing that you should know is wherever you're traveling, please make sure that you're careful. Please make sure that you look around you, have situational awareness, because you never know if you're going to meet an enemy when you walk, right through a door. You never know what the room's going to be, right? So be careful. Further down through here, we have some things talking about being a good host. Um, if you're going to be a good host, in stanza 2, what we've got here is, um, again, that's kind of muddy. So in Crawford's translation, we have hell to a good host. A guest has come inside. Where should he sit? He is impatient, standing on the threshold, ready to try his luck. Essentially, if you're going to be a good host, don't leave your guests waiting around. Um, and the next thing down from that, he needs a fire. The one who's just come in, his knees are shivering. Food and dry clothes will do him well after his journey over the mountains. So, if you're going to be a good host, don't make them wait. Another kind of allegorical thing here is, if you're going to be a good host, try and understand that you might not be aware of what kind of travel that they've done. They might have come over some mountains. It might have been a short trip to you. But if you're going to be a good host, try and be aware of, what your traveler, what your guest has just been through in order to get to you, right? So fire, right? Fire warms the heart. Food and dry clothes, water. Again, we referenced dry clothes in stanzas 4. So if you're going to be a good guest, right, make sure that the place that you have, we've got somewhere to warm someone up. We've got food and dry clothes for people. We've got water to refresh them, and a warm welcome from a friendly host. If you can get it a chance to listen and to be listened to. The last stanza here for 1 through 5, a man needs wisdom if he plans to wander widely. Life is easier at home. He'll be laughed at if he sits among the wise and has nothing to say. Right? So it kind of bounces back and forth between being a guest and being a traveler, being a host, right? There's a couple of um, different codes here. We're bouncing back and forth between ideas, and at the end of stanza 5, a person needs wisdom. If you're going to be traveling around, you might want to have your wits about you. Might want to have some knowledge, some wisdom about things that you can share. We'll get down into the nitty gritty of uh, wisdom, specifically what should and shouldn't be talked about. But yes, if you plan to travel the world, if you plan to meet other people, you definitely need to have a certain amount of wisdom. If you have nothing to say when you sit amongst wise people, you're kind of useless. So right off the bat, pretty cool stuff to dig through, for sure. Number 6, a man should not boast of his keenness of mind, but keep it close in his breast. To the silent and wise does ill come seldom when he goes as guest to a house. For a faster friend one never finds than wisdom tried and true. So between 5 and 6, we have basically, um, a recommendation and a warning. If you're going to travel wide and far, it's important that you have a certain amount of wisdom. And at the same time, don't be showy about it. Guard it carefully. Be silent when you get to a stranger's home. Someone that's wise doesn't wander into harm, because you can never have a more faithful friend than a good supply of wisdom. It's from Crawford's translation. The knowing guest who goes to the feast in silent attention sits. With his ears he hears, with his eyes he watches. Thus wary are wise men all. Happy the one who wins for himself favor and praise is fair. Less safe by far is the wisdom found that is hid in another's heart. Happy the man who has while he lives wisdom and praise as well. For evil counsel a man full oft has from another's heart. A better burden may no man bear for wanderings wide than wisdom. It's better than wealth on unknown ways, and in grief a refuge it gives. So we shift from, we still have certain elements of wisdom, but we also are still calling back to traveling. We're calling back to being a guest, being a host. But now we're starting to shift more towards wisdom as a concept. So, you know, if I were to break it down, break the Havamal down from basically 1 to 5 and 6 to 10. 1 to 5 is just general hospitality. 6 to 10, we're starting to see a little bit of shift. Wisdom and how you keep it. So one of the biggest things in the Havamal, and you'll see this throughout as we go through the Havamal proper, is that there is a definite stance on moderation. So we see like the basics covered in hospitality, but we're not going uh, off the beaten path, being over hospitable, um, which it kind of reads common sense, right? But the Havamal is not advising you to put yourself out to take care of your guest, but you should definitely, as a Norse heathen, have enough resources to take care of a guest if they were to need a place to stay. Hopefully this would be like someone but again, it could be a stranger. But if you're taking care of a stranger, you don't have to put yourself out of hearth and home, but you should definitely have enough resources on hand to be able to take care of someone. Keep them warm, give them dry clothes if they need, food, a chance to listen and be listened to, just general hospitality. And as we shift into stanza 6 through 10, uh, we go through the idea of wisdom, how to keep it. But it's very moderate, right? You're not very mouthy, but you're also never silent, unless there's a reason to be silent or unless there's a reason to speak up. And that is defined and guided by the level of wisdom that you have. And we'll see that moving forward. However, any thoughts so far? Any comments that you would like to add?
I think you've pretty much summed it all up fairly well. I mean, I've got nothing necessarily to add other than I like it.
Awesome. Okay. It's pretty easy. Like I said, it's pretty easy to read through. Um, let's move on to stanza 11. And we're talking more about wisdom. A better burden may no man bear for wanderings wide than wisdom. Worse food for the journey he brings not afield than an over drinking of ale. So stanza 11 is kind of the cutoff, and then we talk about so stanza 11, basically, you're not going to have, if you're going to bring something on a trip, right? If you're going traveling far and wide, if you're going on a trip, the best thing to bring, and the thing that you can't bring too much of, is wisdom. There is, I mean, again, we're talking on tropes of Odin and the nature of the chief of the gods. Wisdom was kind of one of his big things. So yeah, he's got a lot to say right off the bat about wisdom and about how important it is. And Odin's opinion and Odin's stance on wisdom is that if you're going to travel far and wide, there's nothing that you can bring too much of than wisdom. You can't bring too much wisdom with you. It's very important to be wise, to use your wits, to be situationally aware about everything that's going on. And then he also says there's nothing worse that you can bring with you on a journey than too much alcohol. And he goes into a little bit more detail in stanza 12, where we see that less good there lies than most believe in ale for mortal men. For the more he drinks, the less does man of his mind the mastery hold. Over beer the bird of forgetfulness broods, and stills the minds of men. With the heron's feathers fettered I lay, and in Gunlaw's house was held. Drunk I was dead drunk, when with Fjalar wise I was. 'Tis the best of drinking if back one brings his wisdom with him home. So we have a small segment here that challenges the pop culture perception of Norse heathenism, more specifically the job class of a Vikinger. Pop culture says that Norse heathens, Vikings in particular, were a bunch of rowdy, constantly drunk people. I don't find that represented well in the historical mentionings. I mean, yes, there's feasts. Yes, there's ale and mead at feasts, but that's not something that that's more of a stereotype than anything. But honestly, if you're following your faith correctly, um, alcoholism is definitely something that we do not promote. Yes, and we'll see more on drinking here in a little. But as far as alcoholism is concerned, it's not okay. Again, we're taking a moderate approach to life, and we'll see more along that. But Odin gives us some wisdom here. And that's the great thing. Reading through the Havamal speaks on wisdom. You can glean wisdom from the Havamal. So one of the very first things, again, early on in the Havamal proper is, you know, if you're going on a trip, if you're going through life, um, you can't bring too much wisdom, but you can certainly bring too much alcohol. And there's nothing worse than to bring too much alcohol on your journey through life. Definitely not a good idea to overindulge in that. And yeah, just be careful. So the son of a king shall be silent and wise and bold in battle as well. Bravely and gladly a man shall go till the day of his death is come. Just a very blunt statement on living boldly, in my opinion. Um, and we go again. We've got the um, the dichotomy there. We've got wisdom and warning, and you'll see this trope throughout the Havamal. So stanza 15, right? We've got a description, a definition of someone who lives boldly, who's fearless, who challenges things head on, and right into the next stanza, in stanza 16, the sluggard believes he'll live forever if the fight he faces not, but age shall not grant him the gift of peace, though spears may spare his life. There's other more poetic translations of this available, but again, wisdom and warning. Wisdom, hey, the son of a king, he goes headlong into battle, right? And then right in the next one, hey, if you're going to be a coward, if you're going to be someone that's foolish, right? Someone that's foolish thinks that they're going to live forever if they can just, snake their way around arguments, around battles, around violent situations. But at the end of the day, you're not going to have peace, even if you do that, because what the core of our belief here is that if you have a fight, you go headlong into it. You don't wait around for things to get better. You don't hope they change, right? If there's something wrong, we call it wrong. And that's also explicitly stated here down in the Havamal. But yes, if you're going to live life and you're going to live it boldly, if you have a fight, you don't back down. Number 17, the fool is agape when he comes to the feast. He stammers or else is still. But soon if he gets a drink, it is seen that the mind of the man is like. Let's go ahead and hop over to Crawford for that one. Stanza 17, a foolish man misuses his mouth. He talks too much or says nothing, right? We got a little bit of a warning back earlier about this. As soon as he gets a drink, he'll say anything he knows. He alone is aware who has wandered wide and far abroad has fared, how great a mind is guided by him that wealth of wisdom has. Again, sentence structure is a little strange here, but what we're talking about in stanza 18 is only a man who has wide traveled and has wandered far can know something about how other men think. Such a man is wise. So again, the cool thing about, and we mentioned this earlier, the cool thing about wisdom and appropriately showing what you know is that in doing so you also gain more wisdom, right? You're sitting at a table of wise people. You're speaking about what you know, not in a showy way, but in an authentic, genuine way. You meet other people. I mean, the examples here are a little bit more archaic and fit more of a medieval mental picture, but in reality, you know, you're not alone, right? Um, in your travelings through life. There's other people that have gone through similar things that you have. You have wisdom on certain situations. But when we're considering stanza 18, and we look at the words here, only a man who is wide traveled, or person, right? Mankind. Only a person who is wide traveled and has wandered far can know something about how other people think. Such a person is wise. So the more people you meet, the more people you learn about, the more wisdom you have. That's what this is saying here. And that's a great stanza when we consider the amount of trading that the Old Norse people did and the traveling. Yes, we've got some violent pillaging sprinkled in there, but as far as culture goes, the Norse people wanted to learn anything and everything they could about other people, to the point of even leaving the Scandinavian countries. So I believe that stanza 18 is something that would have guided their daily lives just as it guides our daily life. The more people that you meet, we'll see later on here, the happier you'll be. So stanza 19, here we go. Here's the moderate part. Shun not the mead, but drink your measure. Speak to the point or be still. For rudeness none shall rightly blame thee, as soon thy bed thou seekest. Okay, so we've got, again, indulge when it's appropriate, right? Drink your fair share, say something useful, or be quiet. No one's going to judge you if you go to sleep early, right? Um, so there it is. There it is right there. We had the warning about alcoholism earlier. Now we have, your moderation wisdom here. The greedy man, if his mind be vague, will eat till he's sick. The vulgar man, when he's among the wise, uh, to scorn by his belly is brought. So a gluttonous man, we're going to hop over to Crawford again. A gluttonous man, unless he watches himself, will eat to his own detriment. Wise men will often ridicule a fool on account of his belly. So again, we've got warning here. So wisdom and warning. Again, 1920. Wisdom, warning. So we're speaking on gluttony, again, taking a moderate approach to life. So far, we've covered hospitality, wisdom on the road, um, alcoholism as a warning, but also moderate approach to indulgences. Now we're speaking on gluttony, and let's see if we have something maybe a little bit more moderate approach to food. Let's find out. So stanza 21, the herds know well when home they shall fare, and then from the grass they go. But the foolish man his belly's measure shall never know aright. So we're defining a continuation from stanza 20. That gluttonous person, he doesn't know the bottom of his stomach, right? And they compare this gluttonous man to be so silly that even cows have better sense than he does. If I'm reading that correctly, I think I am. So they're basically saying, hey, even the animals know when they need to stop eating, but the foolish person, for the foolish person, doesn't know when to stop eating. And we saw earlier in, again, moderate approach, but we saw here that wise people often ridicule a fool on the account of their stomach. So we want to take a moderate approach. Again, the same thing as alcohol, as to your own detriment. But again, taking a moderate approach to life, and you know, um, knowing your measure, taking your measure, not going too far on either side of the spectrum. Um, Again, another trope through the Havamal, what we see is a moderate approach to life. A paltry man, stanza 22, and poor of mind at all things ever mocks, for never he knows what he ought to know, that he is not free from faults. Um, let's see here. Okay, this makes a little bit more sense. So Crawford's translation says, a stupid man and an undisciplined one laughs at everything. He hasn't learned a lesson that would do him good. He himself isn't flawless. Let's see here. So we've got a someone that really just has poor discipline here, like poor self-discipline in stanza 22. Um, he's constantly one of those people that is laughing at pretty much any situation that he comes upon, even though he's not free from fault. So he's mocking other people. He's being very hypocritical because he's sitting here laughing and mocking at other people, but he hasn't learned his own lessons. He doesn't understand. He doesn't have the self-awareness that he is also not without faults. So we've talked over an undisciplined person. Now we're talking about foolish, the foolish person again. Um, the foolish man for friends, all those who laugh at him will hold. When among the wise he marks it not, though hatred of him they speak. This is speaking in terms of basically this foolish person again thinks that anybody who laughs with him, right? Maybe the same person um, in stanza 22. Looks like I missed. Oh yes, I did miss. Okay, so the witless man or the unwise person is awake all night thinking of many things. Careworn he is when the morning comes, and his woe is just as it was. So we have a break between 22 and 24 here. My apologies. So again, showing a very broad lack of wisdom, right? If you're going to be wise, one of the key factors is, don't stress yourself out about things that you can't change. It's foolish to do so, the Havamal says. Um, you're worrying, you're awake all night about something that's not going to be changed overnight. That's foolish. That's silly. I know it's kind of. I think I gave an introduction earlier on the Havamal, and I said something to the effect of like some of the Havamal's wisdom is like common sense things. It's very tongue in cheek, similar to Voluspa. But it's kind of the Odin likes to give us, in the Havamal, Odin likes to give us kind of the obvious answers. Um, and I always found this to be kind of humorous because it's like, well, yes, it says here in the Havamal, that someone that's foolish is going to be awake all night, thinking about everything that they can't change, and they're exhausted in the morning, and their problems haven't changed, right? It's like, well, that's some of this is smart stuff to take into account, and some of this is just honestly the human condition. It's very difficult sometimes not to think about things that are bothering you, even though you know you can't control them, even though you know they won't change. But the Havamal warns that doing so is foolish. Like we talked about in our heathenism PDF a while back, there's a heavy emphasis on being useful to yourself, useful to your family, useful to your community, and I think that's where this would play in. If you're laying awake all night worrying about things that are outside of your control or that can't change overnight, you're going to be exhausted, which makes you um, less of use, not useless, but less of use to yourself, to your family, to other people. So if you're not going to be useful, um, we would consider that silly or foolish. Um, Definitely an inefficient use of your time, if that makes sense. Any thoughts, comments, concerns, solutions so far? So we got Alex typing real quick. Let's see what he has to say. I'll read it out loud. Okay, so Alex says again, nothing new. Breaking it down pretty good so far. Cool. Awesome. So let's dive further. Um, stanza 24, I believe, is connected to stanza 22 here. So again, we've got that foolish person. I'm going to hop over to Crawford for this one. An unwise person thinks anyone who laughs with him is his friend. He doesn't understand that the wise are mocking him even when he overhears them. So again, in defining and describing this basically laughing stock of the community. This is essentially how, because this isn't the first time that we've seen um, the term. The Old Norse would be Osnialar mother. We've got different variations of that, but they all basically boil down to um, like a foolish person or foolish man. Um, in the Havamal, this is basically the laughing stock of the community. And this would be kind of the antithesis of someone that lives, your proper Norse heathen lifestyle. So, and I find that interesting because it basically, the Havamal spends a significant amount of time in these stanzas defining what being an upright Norse heathen is not, which is interesting, right? For an anti-dogmatic religion and something that doesn't have structure, we find in this Havamal actually a surprisingly structured approach and a surprisingly um, somewhat pseudo dogmatic, not very dogmatic, but it's like if you're going to be, someone that is wise, you have to do this or you can't do that, or someone who's not wise does this. There's a lot of defining, there's a lot of definitions here. It gives us shape, it gives us structure, something that we can cling to understand our faith, our walk a little bit better. Of course, the Havamal is not what someone would consider sacred text. That's not a huge thing in our religion, but that's okay, right? But this unwise person, again, this laughing stock of the community, thinks that anybody who laughs or mocks other people with him is his friend. He doesn't have the situational awareness that even though he overhears people saying bad stuff about him, like he doesn't understand that it's about him, right? It's kind of an interesting, this person that they're defining, that Odin is defining here, is uh, defunct and devoid of any kind of situational awareness. And we kind of see that as a trope through these stanzas, um, just the absolute lack of situational awareness that this unwise person basically wields. It's very sloppy, very foolish, very, all over the place kind of person. So this is what we want to avoid being. This is what we want to avoid doing. Of course, humanity is not perfect. Our gods understand this. Our gods themselves are not perfect, right? But if we're defining what foolishness is, man, we've got a lot of stuff here. So, the foolish person, again, that foolish person, for friends, all those who laugh at him will hold. But the truth, when he comes to the council, he learns that few in his favor will speak. An unwise man thinks anyone who laughs with him or mocks other people with him is his friend, but he won't find these friends when he goes to court. No one will speak on his behalf. Let's see what we've got on number next, stanza 26. An ignorant man thinks that all he knows when he sits by himself in a corner, but never what answer to make he knows when others with questions come. So this same person, devoid of situational awareness, seemingly devoid of all wisdom. Um, he thinks he knows everything. When he sits by himself in a corner, I'm assuming what this is implying here. Let's see here. Crawford defines it as a tough corner. So basically, this person who's devoid of almost all situational awareness, acts like he knows everything when he finds himself in a tough spot in life. The odd thing is he doesn't have answers for the people that have questions for him, right? So he acts like he knows everything, and when that's questioned, it's revealed that he doesn't actually know much of anything. A witless man, the same ignorant person, when he meets with men, had best in silence abide. For no one shall find that nothing he knows, if his mouth is not open too much. But a man knows not if nothing he knows when his mouth has been open too much. So, long and short of this stanza, if you're foolish, it's better to keep your mouth shut when you're around other people. No one will know you know nothing if you say nothing. Ill-informed people are also the ones who don't know when to stop talking. Wise shall he seem who well can question and also answer well, not as concealed that men may say among the sons of men. Um, Here we go. Okay, so like that first little section there, pretty easy to read. If you can question well and answer well, you'll appear wise. Um, People aren't able to keep a secret of what they hear about other people. Okay, so what we're seeing here is specifically looking at interactions with other people. And, if you can answer well, question well, if you have a good way of talking, if you can speak well, then you're going to appear wise. Word of caution that people can't keep secrets about what they think about other people, right? So word of the wise, not only is it important for you as an individual to be concerned about the way that you talk and situational awareness there, but also at the same time, um, be aware that other people can formulate opinions about you. And just like any other human being, people love to talk. So yes, the opinion that is formulated about you is shared elsewhere, with or without your knowledge. So with that in mind, right, we want to make sure that we can hold a decent conversation. The words that we say, right? We've gone from wisdom now to words. Um, wisdom ties directly into the words that we say, and we want to appear wise. So it's best that we, are able to hold a good conversation, ask good questions, give good answers, all of the above. Especially when, we're talking about social interactions. And I believe that's what the context of this text is about right now. Often he speaks who never is still, with words that win no faith. The babbling tongue, if a bridle it find not, oft for itself sings ill. 29. So you'll hurt yourself with all your talking if you never close your mouth. A hasty tongue, unless it's disciplined, often earns its owner punishment. Again, with the words that we say and situational awareness. In mockery no one a man shall hold, although he fare to the feast. Wise seems one oft, if not he is asked, and safely he sits dry-skinned. Sorry, we're gonna have to hop over. No one should ridicule anyone else, even if he owes him money. Many a man seems wise if he is never questioned, but he may prove otherwise. Let's see here, 30. Yeah. Yep, that's the one. Okay. Okay, wise a guest holds it to take to his hills when mock of another he makes, but little he knows who laughs at the feast, though he mocks in the midst of his foes. Again, this one is kind of muddy. A man may seem wise if he pokes fun at another when the other man is away, but the man who talks behind another man's back is a fool, even if his listeners laugh. So again, we're talking about situational awareness in social interactions. Okay, you know, we're defining two ideas at the same time. Someone that seems wise because he's making fun of someone else, and that other person is not in the conversation. But even though you appear wise for doing that, or you might be valued as a person a little bit more because you got some juice on somebody else. Um, that's foolish. Even if they laugh, that's foolish, right? Friendly of mind are many men, till feasting they mock at their friends. To mankind a bane must it ever be, when guests together strive. Oft should one make an early meal, nor fasting come to the feast, else he sits and chews as if he would choke, and little is able to ask. So again, we're talking in terms of moderation, taking a moderate approach to life. And stanza 32 here for the Bellish translation. Many men are kind, but can be driven to fight. There will always be conflict between men. Where there's more than one, there's a fight. And then 33 for the Bellish translation is pretty self-explanatory. Eat early. Don't come fasting to a feast. Because again, we're talking in terms of like extremes here, right? If you're, sitting there and chewing and eating, right? You're starving. Um, you can't hold good conversation that way. Um, that's not a very moderate approach to life. It's very extreme example of the value of social interaction. Again, we spoke earlier in the Havamal in stanzas 1 through 5 about being a good host and a good guest. A good guest is also someone that we've seen in the Havamal so far, someone that's a respectable person that can hold a conversation during a meal or a social interaction. So if you're going to be um, a good human being, someone that is upright, someone that pays attention, you're going to live moderately, right? You're not going to come starving to a meal, because again, if that piece is missing, other pieces will also be missing, like your social interaction with other people. It's very important, again, like we talked about, to gain wisdom from other people. You do that with moderate speech. You can't execute on moderate speech if the only thing that you're focused on is filling your starving belly. Does that make sense so far? Once you're watching this recording later on, for those of you that will be watching the recording later on, definitely be taking notes, because we'll be sending out a recap as well as just kind of the ideas behind the Havamal proper. What are good Norse heathen concepts, as kind of a recap. But yeah, to me, again, a moderate approach, you're going to get the best out of life. So crooked and far is the road to a foe, we're in stanza 34 here. Though his house on the highway be, but wide and straight is the way to a friend, though far away he fare. And so we were going from social interactions now to personal relationships. And what we have here is, basically a comment on social binds, interpersonal binds. Even though, the house is right there, of your enemy, right? For you, it's going to appear crooked. It's going to appear a long trip. Um, and basically the dichotomy of someone you dislike, someone you like, how you feel about that person's proximity to you, right? You would go out of your way to visit a friend, right? And for you, bear you don't even want to think about going to someone that you don't like, even though they're just a short distance away. It's not gonna happen. So just a tiny little comment there before we get back into the meat of things. Forth shall one go, nor stay as a guest in a single spot forever. Love becomes loathing if long one sits by the hearth in another's home. Basically saying here, don't wear out your welcome. Again, another moderate approach: stay when you should, leave when you should. Um, a lot of these things are dealing with, right? You're going to be able to use your link to another person to kind of define what that moderation, quote unquote, moderation is. For some friends, hey, a warm welcome might be 2 weeks. For some friends, it might be one night. But again, uh, the wise person, being socially aware, being contextually aware, understands that if they stay in a single spot, they can quickly turn that friendship sour, um, if you just sit there and wear out that welcome. So just another word of warning from the one-eyed here in stanza 35. So we've gone through a couple of different concepts for living a good life. And we have just a few more to go. Better a house, though a hut it be, a man is master at home. A pair of goats and a patched up roof are far better than begging. So now we've gone from interpersonal relationships to personal property. What's nice to have, what's moderate to have. Better house, though a hut it be, a man is master at home. His heart is bleeding, who needs must beg, when food he fain would have. Stanza 37. So, hey, 36 and 37 here, talking on personal property. It's good to have a house. It's good to have somewhere to live. Even if it's not, the best place to live, it's not a mansion, doesn't have to be, right? What has to be is that you have some place to call home. Even if it's just a pair of goats and a patched up roof, right? It's better than begging. And in the same token, right, for stanza 37 here, so his heart is bleeding, who needs must beg, when food he fain would have. In plain English, your heart will be wounded if you have to beg for every meal from someone else. Right? So the quickest way to hurt your heart is to um, essentially not have a place to call home, have to beg, have to ask your meals from someone else. That weighs heavy on the heart from Odin's perspective. Um, you don't have to have much, but you do have to have enough. If I could sum up wisdom, um, social interactions, personal property, friendships, it doesn't have to be the best. It just has to be enough. I think that is a pretty good defining statement on the codes to life that we've looked at so far. So we've gone from personal property. Now we're back to traveling. Away from his arms in the open field, a man shall fare not a foot, for never he knows when the need for a spear shall arise on the distant road. Um, stanza 38 here, we've got a lot of one-off statements on codes to life also. So stanza 38 would definitely be kind of interjected here between personal property. But it's a statement and it stands. The statement stands that if you're going to be traveling anywhere, anywhere whatsoever through life, through another town, you need to have something to protect yourself with, uh, because you never know when you're going to need, in the words of the Havamal, you never know when you're going to need a spear out on the distant road. But someone, again, you don't have to be hyper violent, but you can't be passive. It's another moderate approach. It doesn't say bring a whole bunch of crazy weapons with you on the road, but you definitely need to have one. You definitely need to have something to protect yourself with. 39, if wealth a man is won for himself, let him never suffer in need. Oft he saves for a foe what he plans for a friend, for much goes worse than we wish. Again, another a statement of moderation in stanza 39. And again, it covers personal property. So Crawford's translation here is actually strikingly different. Let's see here. I've never met a man so generous nor so hospitable that he would not welcome repayment, nor have I met a man who so giving that he turned down a thing offered in return. Do not be so sparing in using your money that you don't use it for your own needs. Often what you save for your children will end up in the hands of enemies. Many things will go worse than you expect. So again, we're talking in terms of moderation. Um, don't hoard it all, but again, at the same time, we're probably going to see some comments on spending away everything you have. We may not, but we definitely see some words of wisdom here. Don't hoard your wealth, use it for what you need. Because many times what you save up and prepare for someone you like is given to someone you don't like. Because many things in life go worse than we want them to. And I think everyone can pretty much agree with that statement. It's pretty common sense. Um, Stanza 40 here in Bellows, none so free with gifts or food have I found that gladly he took not a gift, nor one who so widely scattered his wealth that of recompense hatred he had. And I believe that would be stanza 39 actually in Crawford. Yeah. So it looks like we've got like a difference here in translations. We've got potentially a stanza that was omitted from Crawford's translation, or maybe there was one that was added to Bellows here. So they're not quite lining up. Let's move forward. So we're about halfway there. What are your thoughts so far? We've seen like a lot of things about moderation. We've seen some conversations surrounding personal property, friendships. If you can get off mute, I would love to hear your opinion on what we've covered so far and how you think it applies to your daily life.
I personally feel that it's, I mean, it is a good day-to-day guideline. Like it's a very good, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a step-by-step kind of, like it's a good, yeah, good step-by-step. There's a better word for that, but I can't think of it right now.
For sure. So Britt says you can also certainly tell when folks around you don't share similar values. Yeah, for sure. There's definitely some things to be said for that. It's great too because in the Havamal it does define a lot of the things regarding social interactions. Again, no one's perfect, right? But it's a good guideline. There's the kind of the double-edged sword is like, but it's also a blessing and a curse within the Havamal. It's like there's nothing. It's not very heavy-handed in the dogma sphere. Um, like it's a guide to living well, and at the same time, it doesn't command anyone to do anything. And I think for me, that's pretty cool. Because again, it is, it's something like if you want to live well, a life of moderation is definitely living well according to the Havamal. But we know that things are on a sliding scale. We know that we're human. We make mistakes. So do the gods, right? I think in terms of the Havamal and other readings that we'll do, um, one of the key points here is the consistency of what you do. If you're consistently making fun of other people behind their back, if you're consistently drinking too much, if you're consistently doing this or doing that, right? You kind of fall into this category of foolish or unwise. We all have our room to make mistakes. And I don't think the Norse would disagree with us there. I don't think the gods would either. But any other thoughts? I see Brittany is typing. I know you guys are in the car right now. If you have more to share, absolutely share it. Yeah, definitely agree. So Brittany says, particularly the part about overindulging, nothing wrong with having a good time, but it's important to know when enough is enough, and being able to read the room is definitely something we should be practicing our skills at. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. There's a lot to be said for that. There's numerous occasions where I've misread the room and made a fool of myself. And the great thing is it's not some kind of you know, it's not so polarizing that you're completely worthless, and we'll see that here down in the next little bit. But reading the room, being aware of your surroundings, is very heavy-handed in the Havamal. And I think every one of us could come up with a time where we misread the room, made a fool of ourselves, and gosh, that's super embarrassing. For sure, absolutely. I've done it more times than I can count. At some point in time, definitely lived with a foot in my mouth, right? But we make mistakes, we brush ourselves off. Yeah, absolutely. We're only human. It happens. You get up, you brush yourself off, but the thing that I want to point out here within the Havamal on several different concepts that we're talking about is that there's a defined focus on getting better. There's a defined example of what Odin would consider someone wise is, right? Definitely think that's important. Okay, so stanza 41. Friends shall gladden each other with arms and garments, as each for himself can see. Gift givers' friendships are longest found, if fair their fates may be. To his friend a man a friend shall prove, and gifts with gifts requite. But men shall mocking with mockery answer, and fraud with falsehood meet. To his friend a friend shall prove, to him and the friend of his friend, but never a man shall friendship make with one of his foemen's friends. If we're talking again about interpersonal relationships, if a friend thou hast whom thou fully wilt trust, and good from him wouldst get, thy thoughts with his mingle, and gifts shalt thou make, and fair to find him oft. If another thou hast whom thou hardly wilt trust, yet good from him wouldst get, thou shalt speak him fair, but falsely think, and fraud with falsehood requite. Stanzas 41 through 45, Bellows translation. And we're getting into some very archaic words here. So, friends should provide their friends with weapons and clothing. This kind of generosity shows generous mutual giving as the key to lifelong friendship. Be a friend to your friend and repay each gift with a gift. Repay laughter with laughter. Repay treachery with treachery. Be a friend to your friend and also to his friend, but never be a friend to the enemy of your friend. If you have a good friend and really trust him and want good to come of your friendship, you should speak your mind with him, exchange gifts, visit him often. But if you have another friend and you mistrust him, but you want to benefit from him nonetheless, you should speak to him kindly, flatter him, and repay his treachery with your own. So, again, another moderate approach. It's, again, covering situational awareness. What does the situation call for? Do that. But in addition, a word to the wise. If you're going to be a friend, mutual giving is the key. You can't, let's see here. You can't go through life not needing anything from anyone. That's just not life. It's not possible. But if you're going to have a good friend, that friend is going to, that friendship's going to be reciprocal. And it's specifically mentioning like material needs here, which is I think is definitely an important call out. So if you're going to have a good long friendship with someone, mutual giving is expected. Because someone always, I mean, everyone needs something, right? But to be able, again, situational awareness. What does the situation call for? Being situationally aware of your friendship and what your friend needs from you and being able to give that to them is something that is key to having a lifelong friendship. That could be material, that could be spiritual. Honestly, it could just be a listening ear, but mutual giving and receiving, reciprocity rather, is going to be a key to this code to life regarding friends. And then regarding people that are kind of neutral / enemy like, again, do what the situation calls for, right? If it calls for you to be nice, be nice. But at the end of the day, we pay back what's given. If you're going to be treacherous, it's going to be what you'll receive. So it's presented in such a way here that, you're on the paying end. But we can also flip this around and understand that if you're going to be treacherous with someone else, if you're going to do someone bad, expect that to be given back. You get out what you put in. It's it's almost like we're speaking in terms of natural laws here. But you know, if you're going to be a jerk to somebody, expect the same thing in return. And on the same token, if someone is um like willfully disadvantaging you, you got free reign to give that right back. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way it reads. um, I think in stanzas 41 and some of 42, we do cover, what we would consider friends. That's very important there. Again, we're looking at, material gifts here, but again, we understand that it can be more than material. But if you want to have a good friendship, if someone is your friend, right, take care of your friend. Let's read on. 46. So it is with him whom thou hardly wilt trust, and whose mind thou mayst not know. Laugh with him mayst thou, but speak not thy mind. Like gifts to his shalt thou give. Again, the same. You get out what you put in. We're kind of extending that out. And we kind of have a sharp cutoff here at 46 on that talking point. So in 47, Bellows translates, young was I once and wandered alone, and naught of the road I knew. Rich did I feel when a comrade I found, for a man is man's delight. Wow, there it is right there. We looked at it, we saw it earlier. Our wisdom and friendship, our warmth is found in connecting with other people. We understand that Norse heathenism is a practice that can be done by oneself. But at the same time, and we'll see this in works of the contemporary authors, within the Havamal, within the lore text, you you cannot escape the fact that community is foundational to our practice. Being able to connect with someone else is vital for your health and your happiness. 48, the lives of the brave and noble are best, sorrows they seldom feed, but the coward fear of all things fills and not gladly gives. Let's see here, 48. Kind, brave people live best. They never nurture a grudge. It's unwise to spend your life worrying, dreading your responsibilities. That makes a little bit more sense. Okay. 49. My garments once in a field I gave to a pair of carven poles. Heroes they seemed when clothes they had, but the naked man is not. On the hillside drear the fair tree dies, all bootless its needles and bark. It's like a man whom no one loves. Why should his life be long? So for Crawford here, I gave my clothes to two scarecrows once when I walked in a field. They thought they were human as soon as they had clothes on. A naked man feels ashamed. A fir tree decays standing over a farm, no longer protected by bark and needles. A person is the same way if nobody loves him. How will he live much longer? Okay, we're talking again about community, about connection with other people. Having that protection built up is again foundational to our health and our happiness. We read in stanza 50 a slight commentary on depression. Again, being by yourself, being alone, emotionally is definitely something that's extremely dangerous. Yeah, that one we could probably park at and talk about all night. Um, But the very, very important thing that we pull out of this is that from stanzas, let's see here, essentially from stanzas 47 to 51, 47 to 52, 47 to 52 covers a large swatch of connection with the community and the impact that has, the lack of community and impact that has. 51, we'll hop in here. Hotter than fire between false friends, does friendship 5 days burn? When the 6th day comes, the fire cools, and ended is all the love. No great thing needs a man to give. Oft a little will purchase praise. With half a loaf and a half-filled cup, a friend full fast I made. So we've got a couple of things to pull out here. We just got through talking about the the emotional impact that social connections have. The great thing is like we also have a couple of additional notes on this, on this connection and the emotional impact. So the friendship, so speaks of short friendships here. And then in addition to that, it also talks a little bit more about material gifts. So, we're covering the importance of community, the importance of friendship, and the earmarks or keystones of what it looks like when you don't have that. And at the same time, don't strike up a false friendship, right? It's rapid like fire and then it just fizzles out. In addition to that, you shouldn't give only big gifts. Half a loaf of bread, half-filled cup is enough to win a friendship. You don't have to give big material things, just like you don't have to have a giant mansion for a house. You don't have to have the best of the best. It just has to be enough. You don't have to have a violent fire of a friendship. It doesn't have to be over the top. It just has to be enough. A little sand has a little sea, and small are the minds of men. Though all men are not equal in wisdom, yet half wise only are all. So Crawford here says, where the beaches are small, it's a small sea that washes them, and so it is with little minds. Not everyone is equally wise, but the average is moderately wise. Again, moderation. It is definitely a virtuous thing within the Havamal here. A measure of wisdom each man shall have, but never too much let him know. The fairest lives do those men live whose wisdom wide has grown. A measure of wisdom each man shall have, but never too much let him know. For the wise man's heart is seldom happy, if wisdom too great he has won. So again, we're talking about having, even taking a moderate approach to wisdom. The happiest people throughout their lives are the moderately wise, which is interesting. That's an interesting thought. Again, it doesn't have to be the best. It just has to be enough. You don't have to be the smartest person in the world. But hey, if you're moderate wisdom is the happiest way to live. If you want to be happy in life, don't know too much, but know enough for sure. I think probably one of the most frustrating things that the author is describing here is, you know, we were warned earlier against having or being too showy about our wisdom, talking too much, not knowing when to stop talking. To be honest, if you're chasing wisdom, like your shoes are on fire, um, you end up having, I think, too much to talk about. You're not really relatable with everyone because everyone, the average person, is moderately wise. So I think once you get into that realm of having too much wisdom, or knowing too many things, you kind of run out of things to relate to people with. And you run into that earlier warning where you're just talking to hear yourself talk. You're not really sharing anything with anyone. Um, you think you're wise, but you're actually kind of foolish because all you're doing is running your mouth. So, yeah, a little measure of wisdom, a moderate measure, something that you can navigate through life with efficiently, because that's the happiest way to live, according to the author, is just to be moderately wise. Understand what you need to understand about the earth, about your life, about social connections, material things. You're going to be happy that way. Any thoughts so far? Yeah, it's a nice, easy read. It's pretty self-explanatory. I like it. All right, so here we go. Stanza 56. Measure of wisdom each man shall have, but never too much let him know. Let no man the fate before him see, for so is he freest from sorrow. We are reading from Odin's perspective, so this one is definitely one that hits home for him. Um, it's better for you not to know your fate, because if you know when you're going to die, how you're going to die, that could be seen as very sorrowful. Um, so yeah, that definitely stanza 56 hitting home for Odin's perspective here. A brand from a brand is kindled and burned, and fire from fire begotten, and man by his speech is known to men, and the stupid by their stillness. See what Crawford has to say about that one, because yeah. A torch is lit by another and burns till it's burned out. A fire is kindled by another fire. Yes, a man becomes wise by speaking with other men, but foolish by keeping to himself. Again, our wisdom, our health, our happiness is found in connecting to other people. We're hitting that one really hard through the Havamal. He must early go forth who fain the blood or the goods of another would get. The wolf that lies idle shall win little meat, or the sleeping man success. Um, we've got some wisdom here. Word to the wise: rise up early. If you've got a goal, if you've got a task that you need to achieve, rise up early. Earlier in the Havamal, we said no one's going to judge you if you go to bed early. So going to bed early, rising up early, seems to be the best moderate approach. Again, in terms of excess, staying up super late, waking up crazy early, probably not the best idea, but in moderation, going to bed on time, getting up in time. One, you're not going to be exhausted because you're not thinking about things all night long. And then two, you get enough sleep so that you're not exhausted in the morning, on like a very literal level. So if you're going to get, if you're out for blood, or if you're out for material things, you're going to be up early. The same applies to our natural world. The wolf that lies idle wins little meat. The sleeping man is not successful. He must early go forth whose workers are few, himself his work to seek. Much remains undone for the morning sleeper, for the swift is wealth half won. So again, if you're out for material things, if you're out for um, goods, if you're out for blood, um, or if you just need to do it yourself, it's this. I think these couple of paragraphs are like the hustlers paragraphs. That daily grind life is definitely heavy throughout these paragraphs. Um, of seasoned shingles and strips of bark for the thatch, let one know his need, and how much of wood he must have for a month or in half a year he will use. So not only are you intended to Rise up early if you're out for blood or goods. Get the work done if you're for yourself if you need to. If you don't have anyone there to help you, that just means you need to put an efficient amount of time into getting the work done. If you have to do it yourself, you have to do it yourself. No big deal. You should definitely. Looks like we've got applying this like 21st century in stanza 60. Looks like we should also, the wise person also is someone that keeps a record on the material things that he needs, right? So not only do you know, not only are you up and at 'em, getting it done for yourself, but you're also aware of how much you're going to need, how much work you should put in to get out what you need, if that makes sense. So good budgeting, good inventory management of, if you're a salesperson, both very important things. And if you have to get it done yourself, hey, get up earlier. Some of these things are not easy to hear, but I think that they're necessary. Washed and fed to the council fair, but care not too much for thy clothes. Let none be ashamed of his shoes and hose, lest still of the steed he rides, though poor be the horse he has. So again, another commentary here. Make sure you're fed, make sure you're washed up if you're going out to town. Don't be ashamed of the car that you drive. Even if it's not the best car, but take care of yourself, take care of your things. Living a proper, moderate life, take care of yourself, is the message here. When the eagle comes to the ancient sea, he snaps and hangs his head. So is a man in the midst of a throng or a crowd, who few to speak for him finds. Stanza 62 there. Yes. So basically, the author here assumes that the eagle can't find food at the sea, and likens it to a person in a crowd, with little to no people to speak for him. Right. So we're getting back into social binds, community, a very, very important concept within the Havamal. You would be like an eagle at the sea, if you are someone who does not have a community that can speak for you. There's people that can't talk for you, people that can't answer for you. It's a very hungry way to live. To question and answer must all be ready who wish to be known as wise. Tell one thy thoughts, but beware of two. All know what is known to three. Which I think is the foundation for another saying that we're familiar with. Two is a party, three is a crowd, I guess. Dead men tell no tales. Not doesn't tie very well. Basically, tell someone else your thoughts. Be careful of telling two people your thoughts. And we all know what happens when you tell three people what you think. So basically, just a commentary here on being careful about rumors, that they don't come from you. Of the man who is prudent, a measured use of the might he has will make. He finds when among the brave he fares that the boldest he may not be. Again, getting muddy here. A wise man should use his abilities only in moderation. Otherwise, when he's in battle, he'll learn that no one is bravest of all. Again, another moderate approach. And oft for the words that to others one speaks, he will get but an evil gift. So essentially, you'll often get repayment in kind for the words you speak to others, for stanza 65. So again, that reciprocity, And one of the things to note is that the Havamal, similarly to other poems, is kind of a patchwork. So we may see things that don't tie in it's not a very straightforward thought process, the way that it's written, the poetic style. So not to worry there. But we do have like a sprinkling of different ideas and different concepts within this code of living. So stanza 66, too early to many a meeting I came, and some too late have I sought. The beer is all drunk or not yet brewed, little the loathed man finds. And another, you know, I've been saying it. You all know the word moderation, um, and being more succinct, right? Being efficient with the use of our time, extremely important. Because if you're arriving on time when you're supposed to, you have the social connection, you have the food, you've also ensured to take care of yourself beforehand. You're arriving at all points in moderation. And the thought process here that I've pulled from the Havamal and things in these stanzas in an allegorical way is if you attempt to arrive in moderation at all points within your life, you're going to be happiest because you'll get the most out of it. And that's definitely the results of not arriving moderately here are evidenced by, well, hey, the fun's either over or it hasn't started. And if you're someone that other people don't like to see, you're not going to get much out of it either. To their homes men would bid me hither and yon, if at mealtime I needed no meat, or would hang 2 hams in my true friend's house where only one I had eaten. Fire for men is the fairest gift, and power to see the sun. Health as well, if a man may have it, and a life not stained with sin. 67, 68. I'm going to jump over to Crawford here. Now and then I've been invited to a friend's home as long as I had no need for food, or as long as I could make my inhospitable host cellars fuller rather than emptier. Fire's best for mortals in sunshine, and also good health if you have it, and living beyond reproach. All wretched is no man, though never so sick. Some from their sons have joy, some win it from kinsmen, and some from their wealth, and some from worthy works. So, what we're talking about here is different means of happiness. So, I think the use of the word wretched here, I think is somewhat akin, not so far as like marred or bad, but more along the lines of like forsaken, having nothing, just completely hopeless, type wretched. Because yeah, you can get your joy in all kinds of places in life, even if your health is bad, whether it be your children, your family, your material things, or in the work you've done yourself. I think the comment here would best be summed up as, look for the happiness in everything. Because that's followed up in stanza 70 by, it's better to live than to lie a corpse. The live man catches a cow. I saw flames rise for the rich man's pyre, and before his door he lay dead. So if you're going to live, find happiness. And to be honest, it's better to live than to not live. And I know that that's like, again, face value, that's pretty commonsensical, but at the end of the day, like, some of these things are truthfully like fundamental to understanding your place in the world. Find the happiness, find joy in something, and make sure that you're focused on the here and now. Focus on your life worth living. Because yeah, when it's all over, it's all over. And we see a warning here about a rich person who seemingly has a large amount of material goods, and the writer here explains that this rich man is dead. So why waste a moment, I think, is the commentary here. Almost to the end. Let's see what else we have. The lame rides a horse, the handless is herdsman, the deaf in battle is bold, the blind man is better than one that is burned. No good can come of a corpse. So again, we're following up on that concept of living. Hey, if there is nothing as useless as not being where you're supposed to be, because the writer here describes it as, even someone that has seemingly impossible disabilities can still perform something that they care about, can still do something that they see joy in, or good work in, or happiness in. So I think the statement here again is saying, hey, even someone that can't walk can ride a horse. Someone without hands can, herd up live animals. Someone who may not be able to hear is bold in battle. Someone that cannot see is better than someone that is burned on a funeral pyre, and no good can come of a corpse. So the comment here is most certainly seek happiness, and understand that even if there are things that are seemingly impossible to overcome, still better than the alternative. Son is better though late he be born, and his father to death have fared. Memory stones seldom stand by the road, save when kinsman honors his kin. So, another comment on, living, on life. I think this stanza specifically references family here. And again, we talked about the different definitions for family, and the different ways that we can build family. Better to have a family than not. We can replace son with family. In Crawford's translation here, better to have a family than not, even if you have it late in life, even if it happens after you're gone. You rarely see memorials or graves standing near the road that were raised for people without a family. So again, find the happiness. Again, even if it seems impossible, right? It's still better than the alternative. And by all means, do good, put the work in to build up a good family, because we know that reputation is important. And reputation is found in family. To make a battle, the tongue slays the head, in each furry coat a fist I look for. What in the world? Let me see what that's about. So in Crawford's translation, we have here, two men will defeat one. Your tongue can endanger your head. In every hand hidden by a cloak, I expect to see a weapon. Another word of caution against, the words that you use, and the speech that you have. Be very careful with how you say things, because you never know what the consequence for that is, right? Just be, I guess it's more along the lines of be aware. Be aware that what you can say, what you say can endanger yourself, and expect the worst when things aren't obvious. Yeah, in every hand hidden by a cloak, I expect to see a weapon. So, if there's something to hide, I expect the worst. Yeah, I'm trying to read into this to try and fit a 21st century perspective. With this stanza specifically, I would definitely say, if the answer is not obvious, expect the worst.
Are we on 73?
We are on 73, yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what that's meaning as well. I don't know. I
Crawford
got
seems
nothing
to
on
make a
it.
little more sense.
Well, I'm reading I've got his cowboy one, and
Yeah.
even that one is still
What you got for 73 in the Cowboy Havamal?
So it says, if two fight again, one, two will probably win. And again, son, watch your damn tongue and never trust that what folks keep hidden from you is for your own good.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, two men will defeat one. So, I mean, we can break that down as definitely important to have, uh, like someone to fight with you. Your tongue can endanger your head, right? So your words are very important. What you say is important, because one wrong word and whoa, yeah, you got problems. And then in addition to that, yeah, in every hand hidden by a cloak, I expect to see a weapon. So being aware that in an unfamiliar environment, so like I guess this would also fall back into the custom of the day too, because in medieval times, that's where a handshake would originate from, is revealing that there's no sword in your hand. So if someone's not willing to show that they're unarmed, we should expect that they will be. And that can be like more than literal, I suppose. If someone doesn't have a lot to say to you, they probably don't think very highly of you. Otherwise, they would be speaking to you. Right? That can be applied to a couple of different things, but that's like three different thoughts in one, which is that's wild for sure.
Yeah, I think that's what's confusing is it's not just one thought. It's shoving all of these thoughts into
Yeah,
one stanza.
absolutely.
I guess that makes a little bit more sense now,
Yeah,
breaking it down like
yeah. I
that.
think I think breaking it down into three individual thoughts, three thoughts in one stanza. Again, it's an old text, and patchwork, things cut, things added. So definitely the possibility of having what should have been three different stanzas in one stanza is not outside the stretch of imagination. So that's how I'm going to look at it. That's three stanzas in one right there. So maybe something is missing there, but definitely something's off about that stanza for sure. Hmm. Let's see here. So stanza 74, he welcomes the night whose fare is enough. Short are the yards of a ship. On easier autumn nights, full oft does the weather change in a week and more in a month's time. Muddy, muddy. The seaman is glad at evening, looking forward to his dinner, with just a short distance to row home. But an autumn night is untrustworthy. Many things can get worse in only 5 days, and even more in a month. Um, to me, this one would seem you're looking forward to things, but at the same time, well, what's the old saying? Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Many things can get worse in only 5 days, and even more in a month. So nothing wrong with being happy or looking forward to something. Just be aware that things can change. Um, many things can change and get worse. And as time goes on, the possibility for them getting worse is higher. So as time goes on, things can get worse and worse and worse. So I guess reading through that and breaking it down, I think if you're going to look forward to something, you should look forward to something very short in the future. Being aware that the further that you look down the road, expecting or looking forward to something, maybe like a 10-year or 15-year goal, just be aware that a lot of things change within that time. It's not to be fully trusted. That's pretty good advice. Let's see here. A man knows not if nothing he knows that gold oft apes begets. One man is wealthy and one is poor, yet scorn for him none should know. So the ignorant man does not know how little he knows. You become foolish by listening to fools. One man is rich, another man is poor. Neither has the other to blame. and Crawford's translation here. So yeah, be careful about what you do with the time that you have spending it with other people. You become foolish by listening to foolish people. For this last 5 stanzas, it looks like a 404 error is happening. So let's see here. I'm just going to read from Crawford's on 76 through 80. So cows die, family die. You will die the same way, but a good reputation never dies for the one who earns it well. Cows die, family die. You will die the same way. I know only one thing that never dies, the reputation of the one who's died. And we're talking in terms of death and what lasts after the grave. We hinted at that earlier on in the Havamal. And it says it bluntly right here. Reputation is what lasts. How do you get a good reputation? By being someone who takes life in moderation, who has a good amount of wisdom, who has a good reputation. That's someone who is going to have things to last after in the after. I saw big herds of cattle owned by a rich man's sons. Now they carry a beggar's staff. Wealth is like the twinkling of an eye. No friend could be more faithless. If an unwise man chances upon money or a person's love, he will grow more arrogant but not more intelligent. He'll be deceived about his own worth. What you ask of the runes will prove true. They are gifts of the Aesir, made by the gods and painted by Odin. You'll learn best with your mouth shut. So a lot of advice. We've run through the Havamal proper tonight. Holy cow! That is. We still have some ways to go, and next week we'll definitely be digging through the second element of the Havamal. But from the first through the 80, we've got some definite, strong statements for how to live well, how to take care of yourself, how to take care of other people, what truly matters in life, what does not matter, what will be an advantage to you, what will be a disadvantage to you. So I definitely look forward to reading through the rest of this later on.